Hello, dear students. Let us continue with the chapter The Living Organisms, Characteristics and Habitat. So, dear students, in our last class, we just did the introduction of the lesson. That is, what are the living organisms? What we will be learning about the organisms, like how do they stay, where do they stay, all these things. So, today we will be learning about the habitat. We are going to start with the next topic, that is habitat. We saw some organisms which live in some areas and some organisms which live in other area. So what is the name that we have in this for animals? So this home for animals is nothing but what we call as habitat. So what is habitat? Habitat is nothing but the animals that live in uh, the place where the organisms lives is called as habitat. So we are going to learn where certain animals live, in which places, in which areas. Okay, students, so this today we will be learning about the habitat of animals. So the habitat is the natural home or the environment where an organisms live. So we say that the habitat is nothing but the animals that live or the living organisms. For example, lion lives in den, cow in shed, camel in desert, and so on. Organisms can be living organisms, not necessarily mean that talking about the lions, cows, camels, and so on. It can be any tiny organisms, including the human beings. So far, what we have learnt about the habitat, or we say that habitat is nothing but where the organisms live in. So far, what about us? We live, what is our habitat? We live in the houses which are built in appropriate regions where we are comfortable with. So we live in those areas. So they are our habitat. So, we live in certain areas. Why? Because we are comfortable in that particular area. So, when you look at your grandmother stays in village because they are comfortable in village. Their houses are appropriate. They are comfortable and it is appropriate in that particular region for them. So, they live in village, and you live here. So this is certain examples about the habitat. So similarly, when you talk about the wild animals like elephant, giraffe, monkey, or lion, they live in forest. So forest is their habitat. In fact, forest is a habitat to the huge number of animals. So the way they need homes, every organisms need homes, whether it is a tiny insect or the tiny bacteria, or it can be a huge elephant. All organisms need home, and the environment where all organisms lives are the natural home for of animals, that we call it as habitat. So we discussed about the forest that have homes to the several, that is, forests are the homes for the several animals. But the wild animals or the birds or the tiny insects or the earthworm in the soil, so it is a huge variety of animals actually lives in forest. When you say about the earthworm lives in the soil. The soil is in forest. Yeah, we find soil in forest. Birds in air. Sometimes they sit on the tree, they make their nest. So the trees, the more number of trees are there in forest. So when you talk about the wild animals such as uh, lion, tiger, these all have a particular shed where they live. That is, the lion lives in den, then cow lives in shed, camel lives in desert. These are the particular things where we know about the animals, that where they live. Now, let us talk about the ocean as a habitat. So, what is ocean as a habitat? What are the different types of organisms that we see in ocean? In ocean, we find fishes. We find the tiny fishes, huge fishes like whales, sharks, and dolphins. You find the organisms like crabs, starfish, whale, seaweed. So, what is seaweed? What do you mean by the seaweed? Like how we have weed. What are weeds? Weed are the unwanted plants which grow on the other plants. So similarly in the sea there are tiny plants which grow under the sea, and that is called as seaweed. And red algae. Red algae are many, there are many different types of algae like red algae, green algae. These are the dream of algae. These are the dream algae. What are these? These are the dream algae. Okay. Yes. So these are the habitats of ocean. That is ocean as a habitat. In ocean we see these number of organisms that they live underwater, such as fish, crab, starfish, whale, seaweed, red algae. These are the organisms which live underwater, and they live underwater until their death. Now we are going to learn about the plants habitat. Plants, again, we have different types of habitat. There are certain plants which love to live in water, such as lotus and lily. Lotus, lily, and so on. You have seen most of them in ponds or lake. That is, you have seen the lotus habitat in ponds and lake. You talk about like cactus. The second picture says about the cactus. Where does the cactus grow? Cactus grow in deserts. They grow usually in desert, as they don't need more amount of water, and deserts has a very less amount of water in that particular region. So cactus do not have leaves, they have spines around them. They have thorns around them. They can survive with less amount of water. As they do not have leaves, so they do not use a lot of water. It preserves. In the previous class, we have discussed why cactus does not grow. That is because they don't need more number of water, and plants grow through water, and they do not have any kind of they have root and stem, but they have very tiny ones, but they cannot grow. The leaves are not grown. Instead, the spines and thorns are grown. So leaves are not there, and they are modified to the spines and thorns, so they can survive with less amount of water. So in desert we have less amount of water. Therefore cactus survive well in desert. When we spoke about the lotus and lily, they usually be in water, and they are grown in water, so they prefer to be an aquatic habitat. What do you mean by the aquatic habitat? Aquatic habitat are nothing but the habitats of plants and animals that live underwater. That is, they live in water, are called as aquatic habitat. Okay, dear students? Yes. The terrestrial habitat is nothing but the plants and animals that live on land and are said to be the terrestrial habitat. So, we discussed about the plants that live in water and the plants that live with less amount of water. Whereas when we talk about the other plants which we see around us, we need a lot of water. For example, rose plant, tomato plant, sunflower, and many other plants that which you grow and see around us, all of them needs water and need sunlight so that they can survive in variety places, and some plants need more water across. If you have seen or if you have come across the paddy fields, you have seen the paddy plant, they are more wet, they need more number of plants like to grow the rice, to grow jowar, to grow any kind of spices. They need more water. Only then the plants grow, only then we can see or we can get the seeds. Okay students, so these are the things about the habitat of plants. So in habitats of plants, some plants some plants are aquatic plants, some plants need no water, like they need less amount of water, and some plants need more number of water. When we look for rose plant, we have to put a very little water, but we have to give them water every day. Whereas when you see about sunflower, rose, all these plants need water, but they need to an extent, but they don't need more lots of water. Whereas in paddy fields, we need a lot of water to grow them. Okay, students? Yes. So let us continue this session in the next class. Thank you, class. Enjoy learning.